Do you remember when we were kids and we thought the more best friends you got, the better off you are? So if you got like 5 best friends, you're really doing good. And that's how you thought when you were kids. And you realize when you get older, it's really about just having 1 or 2 at least that you can really count on. Well, let's look at that. I'm Zach. This is The Average Christian. Excited to be back because I'm excited about content like this. I'll explain that in a minute. We want to welcome you here. This is, if you don't know us, it's a project about discovering what it means to have a relationship with God by looking at practical ways to live this out in everyday life. And so we're holding each other accountable through these videos. We are looking at truth. We're also dispelling myths about Christianity. And we're glad you're here. If you're on podcast, please at some point subscribe, rate, and review us. That helps get the word out. If you're on YouTube watching this, thank you for being here as well. And if you haven't already, hit the subscribe button, the notification bell that keeps you up to date with new content that's released. Like this video. If it helps you, share it with other people, even more important. And give us some feedback. You can find us on Facebook and Instagram. Leave us a comment, a message somewhere, especially if you have content that you'd like us to cover. That's why I'm excited about this content specifically, is because Michael Heaton got in touch with me and said he really wants to discuss this subject that I'll get into. And hopefully this helps him. And I appreciate him and so many others who've asked about certain content as well. So let's get back into it. Talking about best friends reminded me of a story and probably one that you wouldn't necessarily go to or think of right off. But in John 11, John is one of my favorite books because that disciple was so close with Jesus. You get so much more detail. The stories are more intimate because of his relationship with Jesus. And so here you see this famous story about Lazarus getting ill, even dying. And watch this, and we'll put a couple other things in there to bring the story home and the point home of this video. A certain man was ill in John 11:1. Lazarus of Bethany, the village of Mary and her sister Martha. It was Mary who anointed the Lord with ointment and wiped his feet with her hair, whose brother Lazarus was ill. So the sisters sent to him saying, Lord, he whom you love is ill. So already you know that Mary, Martha, Lazarus, these siblings all have a great relationship with Jesus. And when Jesus heard it, he said that this illness does not lead to death. It is for the glory of God, so that the Son of God may be glorified through it. Now Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. So when he heard that Lazarus was ill, he stayed 2 days longer in the place where he was. And after, he said to his disciples, let us go to Judea again. The disciples said to him, Rabbi, the Jews were just now seeking to stone you. Are you going there again? And Jesus answered, are there not 12 hours in the day? If anyone walks in the day, he does not stumble because he sees the light of this world. But if anyone walks in the night, he stumbles because the light is not in him. After saying these things, he said to them, our friend Lazarus has fallen asleep, but I go to awaken him. The disciples said to him, Lord, if he's fallen asleep, he will recover, meaning he will wake up. I don't think you need to travel to Bethany to wake him up from a nap. Now, Jesus had spoken of his death, but they thought he meant taking rest and sleep. Jesus told them plainly, Lazarus has died. He's got to be blunt with these guys because they have trouble catching on at times. And for your sake, I am glad that he was not there. I'm in verse 15 now, so that you may believe, but let us go to him. So Thomas, called the twin, said to his fellow disciples, let's also go that we may die with him. That's for another time. Now, when Jesus came, he found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb 4 days. Bethany was near Jerusalem, about 2 miles off, and many of the Jews had come to Martha and Mary to console concerning their brother. So when Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went and met him, and Mary remained seated in the house. Martha said to Jesus, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But even now I know that whatever you ask from God, God will give you. So you see these ladies have faith as well. And Lazarus showed his faith to Jesus at times as well. Jesus answered or said to her, your brother will rise again. Martha said, I know that he will rise in the resurrection on the last day. And Jesus said to her, I am the resurrection and the life. Whoever believes in me, though he die, yet shall he live. And everyone who lives and believes in me shall never die. Do you believe this? She said to him, yes, Lord, I believe that you are the Christ, the Son of God, who's coming into the world. When she had said this, she went and called her sister Mary, saying in private, the teacher is here and is calling for you. And when she heard it, she rose quickly and went to him. And Jesus had not yet come into the village, but was still in the place where Martha had met him. And when the Jews who were with her in the house consoling her saw Mary rise quickly and go out, they followed her. So now there's a crowd gathering. And they were supposing that she was going to the tomb to weep there. Now, when Mary came to where Jesus was and saw him, she fell at his feet, saying, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. That's exactly why they sent to Jesus. They knew that he could heal Lazarus. He's now 4 days too late in their eyes. When Jesus saw her weeping, and the Jews who had come with her also weeping, he was deeply moved in his spirit. Now, look, Jesus understands that he's about to raise Lazarus, that he caused this situation, that he could have been there, but he let Lazarus die because he's going to teach them about the resurrection. Still knowing all that, he's deeply moved by this in his spirit and greatly troubled. And he said, where have you laid him? And they said to him, Lord, come and see. Maybe one of the most powerful verses in all the Bible, verse 35, Jesus wept. So the Jews said, see how he loved him. But some of them said, could not he who opened the eyes of the blind man also have kept this man from dying? Couldn't he have done something about it? They're kind of angry with him. They're upset with him. Jesus, deeply moved again, came to the tomb. It was a cave and a stone lay against it. And Jesus said, take away the stone. Martha, the sister of the dead man, said to him, Lord, by this time there will be an odor, for he has been dead 4 days. Now, just a little aside, this is kind of one of those, if you're reading the King James, this is one of those where you kind of laugh at that old language, because I believe it says, surely by now the body stinketh. Yeah, one of the reasons why I prefer the ESV. But surely there's an odor, or he stinketh. Jesus said to her, did I not tell you that if you believed, you would see the glory of God? So they took away the stone. Jesus lifted up his eyes and said, Father, I thank you that you have heard me. I knew that you always hear me, but I said this on account of the people standing around, that they may believe that you sent me. When he had said these things, he cried out with a loud voice, Lazarus, come out. The man who had died came out, his hands and feet bound with linen strips, and his face wrapped with a cloth. And Jesus said to them, unbind him and let him go. Now, if you go later on in John chapter 14, John 14 and verse 1, popular passage here. Jesus talking to his disciples at the Last Supper and telling them a lot, teaching them a lot of things before everything goes down relating to his death. He says, let not your hearts be troubled. Believe in God, believe also in me. In my Father's house are many rooms. If it were not so, I would have told you, and I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go to prepare a place for you, I will come again. I will take you to myself, and where I am, you may be also. He goes on to talk to them in chapter 15 and says the following, greater love has no man than this, that someone lay down his life for his friends. You are my friends if you do what I command you. No longer do I call you servants, for the servant does not know what his master is doing, but I have called you friends. For all that I have heard from my Father, I have made known to you. Friends come and go in life. There were people that I thought I would be around my whole life, people I thought I would be in touch with my whole life. Some of those I lose touch with for years at a time, get back together with them, and we start off like we never missed a beat. Some I've never seen or talked to again, and then you have those one or two that come into your life and stay there for a long time. Michael, I'll tell you what he sent me. Let me read this to you. After some greetings, he said, I lost a great friend in my dad. LJ, his dad, passed away not too long ago. Great man. And I remember being at the funeral and Michael his son reading scripture. And you talk about powerful to see a man who's grieving the loss of his dad, reading these scriptures about strength. Well, he sent this, and I like his words. He said, I leaned heavy on the greatest friend you could ever have, my Lord. I and most try to shoulder life stuff on our own. We need to be reminded that God always cares in good and hard times. We truly have no greater friend if we will let him be. And he goes on to thank us for what we're doing here. And I thank you, Michael, for bringing this up, because that's exactly what we read about in John chapter 11. There was no greater friend than Jesus, who cared so much about Lazarus and Mary and Martha, and cared about teaching them, and cared about his physical life, but more so his spiritual life. And then goes on to tell his disciples that the things that give people like Michael and anybody else who's grieving hope that this is not the end, that it's not all over, that one day he will see his dad again if he remains faithful. And it gives us that hope. And Michael brought out the best point, is that God is absolutely the best friend, wants to be that as well, if we'll trust him, if we'll let him be that friend, if we'll listen to him and pay attention and share our lives with him. I know you think prayer, many of you think prayer is about just asking God for stuff and thanking him and praising him. But when you read through the Psalms, you see the psalmist sharing with God and expressing his emotions and crying out to God and sharing joy and all types of things. Kind of like if he was writing a journal to God. God is that best friend. I hope you'll go back and restudy John 11 and see how much Jesus cared and how Lazarus, Mary, Martha, had no greater friends, how those disciples whom Jesus was talking to had no greater friend as well. And I hope it helps.